Life in Greece is far more difficult than it appears. Back in 2017, the average cost of buying a home in Athens was 1,300 euros per square meter. Fast forward to today. That figure has soared to 2,500 euros, a jaw-dropping 88% increase in under a decade. And it's not just the capital. Across the country, property prices have jumped nearly 70% since 2017, outpacing almost every other nation in Europe. But while prices skyrocketed, wages barely budged. In real terms, many Greeks now earn less than they did before the 2008 financial crisis. What began as a housing crisis has spiraled into a cost of living emergency, a rental squeeze, and even a new kind of immigration crisis, not one driven by asylum seekers, but by an influx of tourists, digital nomads, and wealthy foreign investors. Tourism today accounts for over a quarter of Greece's GDP. Nearly 2 million Greeks rely on it for their livelihood. Yet in places like Athens, the rise of short-term rentals, especially through platforms like Airbnb, has flooded the market. In some neighborhoods, tourist rentals outnumber homes for locals. Why rent to a Greek family for 500 euros a month when you could earn that in just a week from a tourist? Entire districts have been transformed. More than 1 million short-term rentals now dominate the landscape nationwide. In some regions, 1 in 5 homes sits empty, owned by investors, or set aside for visitors. Locals are being priced out, pushed to the outskirts, or crammed into tiny apartments far from work. Frustration is boiling over, and protests have become commonplace. But many haven't waited. Since 2009, over 500,000 educated young Greek doctors, engineers, teachers have packed up and left. The problem is no longer just about real estate. It's about identity. A slow, relentless shift is reshaping what it means to live, work, and belong in Greece. How did it get this bad? To understand the roots of this crisis, we must rewind to the 1970s. After emerging from military rule, Greece's new democratic government promised prosperity and launched massive public projects, new highways, expanded hospitals, and booming public sector jobs. Life felt hopeful. But this progress came at a steep price. The government borrowed heavily, not just in crises, but routinely. Public debt tripled in the 1980s and kept rising. At first, it didn't seem dangerous. Growth continued, and other countries were borrowing too. But Greece had a unique vulnerability: widespread tax evasion and a cash-based economy. Wealthy elites often dodged taxes entirely. By the time Greece joined the Eurozone in 2001, its debt had already reached 97% of GDP. Access to cheap Eurozone credit masked deeper issues. Low interest rates encouraged even more borrowing until 2008 hit. The global financial meltdown shattered investor confidence. Greece, heavily reliant on loans, suddenly found no one willing to lend. The country was out of money and had no way to devalue its currency or print more limitations of the euro. A nation sold off. By 2010, Greece was forced to accept a 110 billion euros bailout from the EU and IMF. But help came with painful conditions. 1 in 4 public workers laid off. Salaries slashed by up to 30%, healthcare budgets gutted. Taxes soared, yet still couldn't keep up. Desperate, the government began selling national assets, airports, oil refineries, even the power grid. Foreign investors scooped them up, often through deals with politically connected Greek elites. The port of Piraeus went to a Chinese firm. Airports were leased to a German conglomerate. Vital infrastructure was no longer in Greek hands. While the average citizen suffered, a select few profited handsomely. Tourism, a double-edged sword. With few options left, Greece turned to tourism. The country poured resources into upgrading hotels, simplifying visas, and promoting its islands. The strategy worked. Tourism exploded from under 20 million visitors in 2009 to over 41 million in 2024. Tourists brought 22 billion euros annually. But the boom was a double-edged sword. Most tourism jobs are low-paying and seasonal. The average worker earns just 1,100 euros a month, barely enough when living costs exceed 2,000 euros in cities. Neighborhoods once home to families and workers were converted into hotels and Airbnbs. In places like Kokaka, longtime renters were evicted as landlords chased tourist money. The Golden Visa Trap. In 2013, Greece introduced the Golden Visa, Invest 250,000 euros in property and gain residency. It attracted over 5.5 billion euros in real estate investment, but the consequences were severe. Most investors never lived in these homes, they turned them into rentals. Now the profits flowed out of the country, not back into the economy. Entire apartment buildings were gutted and converted into tourist accommodations. Housing supply shrank, prices surged, and average Greeks were outbid by wealthy foreigners. By 2024, central Athens saw property prices rise 88%. Rent spiraled, and wages lagged far behind. Half of many families' income now went just to keep a roof overhead. An exodus and a collapse. The result? Locals being priced out of childhood homes. Protests erupted. Prime Minister Mitsotakis eventually intervened, banning new rental licenses in central Athens and raising the golden visa threshold to 500,000 euros in hot zones. But it was too late. Over 50,000 people were already leaving each year, young, skilled, full of potential. Greece had invested in them only to lose them. With so many healthy adults gone, Greece's birth rate collapsed to 1.3 children per woman, one of the lowest in the world. The economic cost is staggering. But the social cost is even worse. The real culprits. It's tempting to blame foreigners or tourists. But the truth is, much of the crisis was engineered by Greece's own elites. While the average Greek tightened their belt, these insiders saw opportunity. They bought privatized infrastructure, landed lucrative contracts, and profited from basic human needs. A stretch of Athens motorway once cost 3 times more than a similar one in France, while Greek wages were half as high. Even in 2024, the minimum wage stands at just 830 euros before taxes. Rent alone swallows more than half of that. Today, tourists live better than many Greek citizens. Luxury Airbnbs in central Athens sit spotless and empty for much of the year, while locals cram into basement flats or share tiny units on the city's edge. Greece's story isn't just a cautionary tale of failed economic policy. It's about real people, teachers working 2 jobs just to survive, young couples abandoning dreams of a family, and citizens forced to leave the land they love. The question is no longer whether Greece can recover, but whether its people will ever recognize it again or return at all.